So, as of writing this video, the first lore video has gained me a hefty amount of views, and by a hefty amount of views, I mean it's reached the same amount of views it took another video of mine to get in a month, and it is still quickly climbing. So, I decided I'm going to stick around with Skylanders for a bit, which led me to the eventual question of, what's next? I might just have to get an entirely new game and an entirely new batch of Skylanders, because I'm currently stuck to everything pre-Trap Team. And everything pre-Trap Team is, in no short terms, fucking complex like no other. I wanted to instantly jump into the Archeans and try to put together the history behind them, but when I actually began doing research, I realized that it would be its own video, and maybe even be the longest video I ever make. And I don't know if poor CapCut would be able to handle it, so I decided to take a look at Spyro. And I immediately realized that doing a video on Spyro would be much worse. If I wanted to talk about Spyro, I would also have to talk about Cinder, and if I wanted to talk about Cinder, I would also have to talk about Malifaux, a character who never shows up in the games, so I would have to explain him first, and if I wanted to explain him, I would also have to talk about the books, because apparently, that's where the most stuff happens between these three, and it would just be a goddamn mess. But while I was researching for those maybe scrapped videos, I began to see a pattern in the fandom and Wikipedia pages. Pirates just seem to be everywhere in Skylands. There are good pirates, there are evil pirates, there's pirates of damn near every element, and it makes a lot of sense why there would be a ton of pirates running around, which makes it less of a surprise that many of the Skylanders we know have had histories and interactions with them before, so we're going to go over some today. So, anyways, let's get started.
Eight legs and no legs.
So the first Skylander up on today's block is a SWAT Force member by the name of Washbuckler. Washbuckler grew up as an orphan on a ship with one of the roughest group of pirates in Skylands. Like pirates do, they mostly pillaged and plundered whatever they could find. But Washbuckler objected to this train of thinking. Over the years, he would slowly but surely gain the respect of the crew before eventually convincing the majority of them that what they were doing was wrong. So they changed their ways and eventually began to do heroic deeds across the seas of Skylands, Washbuckler becoming their captain. When word of this got out to most of the other pirates who knew about their crew, they didn't really take kindly to any of it, and tried to attack and sabotage his crew at damn near every chance that they could possibly get. But Washbuckler and his crew fended them off at every turn. Their show of heroics and bravery eventually got the attention of Master Eon, who extended invitation out to the captain to join the Skylanders, which the captain would accept. But don't worry, dear viewers, this is not where his story ends. On a mission with a group of Skylanders that consisted of the SWAT Force, the Superchargers, and a few others that most likely takes place sometime after SWAT Force, they would discover a secret lair where Chaos was experimenting on petrified darkness. Turns out when they went into the lair, Chaos was there, which led to a confrontation that ultimately ended in the cave exploding, turning all that petrified darkness into a cloud of darkness. Knowing how much this would damage Skylands itself, the Skylanders present would absorb as much of it as possible into themselves, becoming darker versions of what they once were. That's right, the Dark Skylanders collectibles are actually canon to the Skylanders lore. This was pretty bad because if they didn't learn how to control this darkness fast, it could eventually corrupt them beyond saving. But thankfully, Spyro was around and already dealt with a situation like this before, so he taught them how to control the darkness and eventually brought them back to normal, because every time he shows up after this, he's his normal blue color. Funnily enough, this would happen multiple times with other Skylanders, and it's basically an explanation for the Dark Skylanders' existence. They would find a lab full of something like dark traptanium, they would be exposed to it in some way, they would turn black, Spyro would have to train them on how to control it, and everything would go back to normal before Twitter found out. But we are getting way off track. Let's get back to Washbuckler. In the Chaos Trap storyline, Washbuckler along with Pop Fizz and Stealth Elf are assigned to deliver supplies to a Mabu mining expedition. If you don't know what a Mabu is, it's this thing, and what they were mining was something called Radiance Crystals. On the way there on Flint's ship, he tries to get Stealth Elf to relax a bit, but after she gets passive-aggressive with him, he backs down. When they get there, however, they immediately realize that the mining operation is under attack by Chaos's army of trolls, so they immediately jump into action and begin to defend the Mabu to the best of their abilities. And the three were mostly on their own since other Skylanders were too busy defending other parts of Skylands. Things were already looking pretty bleak for them. And then Wolfgang arrived. When they saw Wolfgang, they kinda began to panic, but before he could make things worse, Snapshot and Wallop arrived to help the three push the trolls back, and they eventually captured Wolfgang. The Mabu praised the Skylanders for saving them, but they noticed that the trolls stole something called the Fork of Infinite Resonance. But since it doesn't really involve Washbuckler, I'll be leaving it alone for the time being. He also shows up in two other books called Return of the Dragon King and Rift into Overdrive, but I won't be covering them since I want this to be a pirate video, not a Washbuckler video. And if you thought that this was long, you haven't seen anything yet. So let's get on to the next Skylander.
Hail to the whale!
Now, when it comes to the Giants, I think that Thumpback may be the luckiest out of all of them because of what happened in his story. Thumpback used to be a crew member of the Phantom Tide, the most fearsome ship in all of Skylanders because it was so big that it ate islands. Thumpback didn't really care about the pirating stuff, however, as he was more interested in things like fishing, and because of that, he wasn't really happy on the ship. But one day, he spotted one of the most elusive creatures in Skylanders, the Leviathan Cloud Crab. Completely over the moon, he tried to capture the crab, but instead it pulled him overboard. He was carried off by the crab into the horizon. This was actually the luckiest thing that could have happened to him because sometime later, his old crew was banished to the Chest of Exile, a chest that the Archeans specifically built to contain the Phantom Tide and his crew. Unluckily for Thumpback, the Cloud Crab got away, and he would never see his crew again, so he joined the Skylanders and helped them fend off the Archean Empire. And that's pretty much where his story ends. I tried to look for anything else that he did, but to my knowledge, he didn't really show up anywhere else in the timeline. He doesn't even show up in the Academy continuity either, he was just kind of forgotten. But my personal headcanon is that he's living his best life somewhere fishing the rest of his days away. But with that all over, let's get on to the last Skylander of today.
Locked and loaded!
Now, Gil Grunt may seem like a weird choice to many people. Gil Grunt isn't a pirate, but he does have a story that involves pirates. When Gil Grunt was younger, he joined the Gilman military in search of adventure, and while he was going through a misty lagoon, he was disarmed by a mermaid that he saw as absolutely beautiful. The mermaid charmed him so much that he vowed to return to her after his tour, but once he returned to the lagoon years later, he learned that a band of pirates came through the area and kidnapped her. Obviously distraught, Gil Grunt began to search all over Skylands in an attempt to find her, only to turn up completely empty. Later on, he decided to join the Skylanders to help protect Skylands from pirates and other evildoers, but he hasn't stopped his search for the mermaid. He makes an appearance in the Machine of Doom, Spyro vs. the Mega Monsters, the Chaos Trap, Ripped into Overdrive, he has his own book called Gil Grunt and the Curse of the Fishmaster, and he would even be a major character in Skylanders Imaginators. Now, you think I would go over his involvement in these stories, but the reason why I didn't is because of how long these stories were. These stories were so long, in fact, that the fandom crashed over 3 times while I was researching. So yeah, Gil Grunt is probably gonna get his own video in the future. But there's one thing that we have to know. Did he find his mermaid waifu? And I think this comment explains it the best. He protect, he attack, but most importantly, she's never coming back. And this is where I'm going to end this video, but before I go, I'd like to thank everyone who watched, liked, or subscribed after watching my first Skylanders video, and this is the only time where I'm going to beg you guys to subscribe. I am halfway there to qualifying for the partner program, and if I keep things up the way they do, I will be there by the end of April, but that's where I'm going to end things off for today. Like always, hit the subscribe button if you enjoy content like this, share this around so I can grow as a channel, and I'll see you guys next time.